Good evening, guys. It's 8:33 p.m. Good evening, guys. It's 8:33 p.m. And this is Podcast Diaries number 28. And today we're talking about two different topics. The first topic is being sleep deprived or having sleep deprivation. I believe that's how you pronounce it. We'll just say sleep. Your sleep being deprived from you, being taken from you. And we're going to talk about the different things that can cause it. We're going to talk about different things that you deal with. And I can speak on it because I believe I have dealt with this since the age of 31. I'm still in my 30s, my mid 30s. I'm not going to go into detail what specific age, but use your imagination. But my second topic is witchcraft. Now, I'm not going to just talk off the dome and make up shit, you know what I'm saying? This is something that I'm actually going to talk about in detail. When I say talk off the dome, I don't mean that when people speak live or talk off their mind, they're lying. What I'm saying is I don't want to make shit up. I don't want you guys to think that I'm making shit up. So I'm going to actually give you definition of what this means. You know, each title means. Like I said, the first one is sleep deprivation. Sleep being deprived from you. And I'll be honest with you guys. Most of my life, I haven't been really a happy person. You know, I remember happy moments in my life, but happiness and joy are two different things. Happiness is temporary. Happiness is when you do things or find things to make you happy, or you look for things to fill a void in you so that you can be happy. But true ultimate joy is being happy no matter what, or feeling, good no matter what you're dealing with, And I know a lot of it has to do with gratitude. I know that's something I got to work on. I need to be more, grateful to God, because my situation could be a lot worse. And maybe one day I'll talk about my situation to you guys. Probably once I'm out the situation, I'll talk about it. But at the moment, I'm not, because I haven't gotten out my situation. But I will say that when I get on this podcast, this is my happy space. This is the space where I am honestly and truthfully myself. I mean, I'm myself wherever I go. But I am really being myself on this podcast because I'm expressing my thoughts. And if I'm not expressing it verbally on this podcast, I might express it verbally out loud when I'm by myself. And, to some people that might be crazy. And maybe I shouldn't say this on this podcast, but I'm being real, Just because you might have a few ideas and you might share it with yourself, I don't necessarily think that's crazy. You're just crazy when you start responding back to these, when you start having a conversation with yourself, then, you might be looked at as kind of crazy. But, if you just have a thought and you talk about it to yourself, talk yourself through it, that's not bad. As long as you're not delusional and you have these, episodes where you're talking back to yourself or making things up. But I will also say that even with that topic about, this being my space, me being myself, if I don't journal it, with a pen on a piece of paper, or if I don't journal it in my phone, I'll journal it out loud on my podcast, because this is the open space for me to be honest with you guys. And, like I stated, once I post this, you guys will be able to be honest with me too. And I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys are going to be honest, whether it be positive or negative. If it's positive, great. Negative, I'm still ready for it. But not to babble, let's stick to the topic. The topic today, like I stated, is the first one is sleep deprivation. I believe that's how you pronounce it. And the second topic is witchcraft. Now, the sleep deprivation, the basic definition, I'll just say that the basic definition, if you Google it or look it up in an article, or if you get a book on it, or if you do some research on it, the basic definition is not getting the required amount of sleep. Now, Now, the internet states that the common causes of sleep deprivation can have causes that aren't due, that, they can cause, it's a sleep deprivation can have causes that aren't due to underlying diseases, meaning that, you can have sleep deprivation not because you have any type of illness or disease. It could just be because, you're dealing with stress, school, a job requirement, and then poor sleeping habits. It doesn't necessarily have to mean because you're on medication or because you're not, healthy, quote unquote, whatever it is that society might put in your head. But they say that self-treatment would be, following consistent sleep schedule and doing relaxing activities before bedtime may help improve sleep. Avoiding heavy meals and alcoholic drinks before sleep may also help. And, I'm going to get into that. But the problem here is if you deal with this on a consistent basis, you can increase chronic diseases, you can increase cognitive impairments, you can increase emotional instability, you can be emotionally unstable. You can be unstable because you're not getting enough sleep, and people don't understand that sleep is very important. And cognitive impairments, can be, not remembering information, not learning as quick as you should, you don't have focus, your concentration is constantly being, jeopardized, or you're not concentrating the way you're supposed to. Your mood changes a lot. You're always irritated. You're either irritated, anxious, depressed, and you're not able to manage your emotions. Or it could be all of these. You could be irritated, be dealing with anxiety, and dealing with depression, and dealing with situation where you can't control your emotions. And like I said, I'm going to go into detail about this, and what I mean is I'm going to use myself as an example. And this is the reason why I'm going to talk about this, because not only does it affect your physical health, it can affect your mental health as well. A lot of people who have mental issues, they weren't born with it. It could be because, like I said, lack of sleep. And I've talked about this numerous times to different people. I have looked this up, and I can honestly understand that it can affect your mental state, because sleep is supposed to be a time where your body is resting. So if your body is not resting adequately, you can increase diseases, because that time that you're sleeping, which is for adults, I believe, you can look it up, but I believe it's 7 to 8 hours for adults. Children, it's between 8 to 10 hours, I think, for children, or, maybe 8 hours, 9 hours at most for children, But for an adult, you need at most 7 to 8 hours for you to function properly every single day. If not, it can cause your immune system to diminish, or not diminish, but it can cause your immune system to change up. It could also cause, like I stated, mental issues. It can cause, mood, changes. And part of that has to do with managing your emotions. Because you could be feeling all types of stuff, but if you're not able to manage your emotions, it's kind of hard to function in life with people, with society. Because society will view you as this crazy person that doesn't know how to, be mature, because a lot of times people who deal with this are adults, little kids. Maybe some kids do deal with this, but I'm speaking from an adult perspective. That as an adult, if you all your life, or most of your life, or a certain part of your life, you're not getting adequate sleep, it can cause a lot of problems. And people don't understand the importance of sleep. They just don't get it. Some people feel like, if you sleeping too much, you're lazy. No, you're not lazy if you're sleeping the amount of hours you're supposed to sleep. Now, you become lazy when you're oversleeping, because there's some people who sleep for 14 hours. I don't know how they do it. But I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I ain't gonna lie. People who sleep over 8 hours, I envy them. You know, I've never said this before about being envious or jealous, but I envy people who can sleep 8 hours or more. I even envy people who sleep 7 hours. The reason why I envy people who sleep 7 hours is because I don't get that shit on a regular basis. I might get that maybe a few times out the month, and I can speak on this because I have been dealing with this since, like I said, since I was 31, and I'm going to talk about that in detail, where it started from. And I honestly think that sometimes when people deal with sleep deprivation, it could be through trauma too. Some people have dealt with trauma in their life, and that might cause them not to sleep the way that they're supposed to. You know, a lot of, veterans, they've dealt with trauma, so they don't sleep the way they're supposed to. Sometimes you might have dealt with some traumatic stuff when you were a young person, and then you get older, and your sleep is not right anymore like how it used to. Because honestly, the average person should be getting 8 hours of sleep, regardless of what age you are. And research have showed that the older you get, your sleep cycle changes, and it might diminish. But at the same time, if you're taking care of yourself, you're eating healthy, you're around the right people, you have the right sleeping cycle, you should be able to be getting the right sleep. But if your job hours change up, and I'll use myself as an example. When I was 31, I had got a plant job, and that job required me to work from 5 p.m. at nighttime to 5 a.m. in the morning. Some nights 5 p.m. to 3:30 a.m. So you guys listening to the hours? Now granted, those hours to some people it's not a big deal, because there are some people who have careers that require them to work those hours. If you have a business, you work 24 hours, unless you got an assistant or other people working for you. But if you're not rich and you don't got money like that, even rich people still deal with sleep deprivation. It's not just about how much money you got. It's people who are broke as shit and they sleep so good, and then there's people who are rich who don't get adequate sleep. So I wouldn't say necessarily it's about money, but if you have money, you can fix your sleep deprivation quicker or easier than someone who doesn't have money like that. So you gotta put that into perspective. But going back to my topic, your job hours can affect your sleep. Who you're around can affect your sleep. What you watch, what you listen to can affect your sleep. Your eating habits can affect your sleep. What you listen to can affect your sleep. What you look at can affect your sleep. Your eyes can, what you're looking at can affect your sleep. Like I said, trauma is serious. You might be traumatized by something that might cause you not to be able to sleep like that, or you might watch some shit on TV and it might bring in some type of spirit into your life, and that spirit is causing you not to sleep that well. I'm very spiritual when it comes to stuff like that, and when it comes to spirituality, I'll talk about that topic, my second topic, which is witchcraft. But I'm not gonna keep jumping back and forth, but sticking to this first. Like I said, mood changes. My mood changes all the time. I don't want to say I'm bipolar, because I'm not bipolar, and this podcast is not about that mental disorder, bipolar. I'm not going to go into detail about that, because I'm not a doctor. I'm not a physician. I'm not no psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. So I'm not going to go into detail per se about that specific mental illness, because a lot of people deal with that. And some people, they might view you as bipolar if you can't manage your mood, but you might not be bipolar. You might just be somebody that you just need some good rest, some good sleep, and on a consistent basis, not just once a week, not just once, twice a week, 3 times a week, not just a few times out the month, but consistently every day. Because I remember I was getting some good sleep until I turned 31. When I got that job, everything changed. My whole sleep changed. I started smoking weed more, because the weed helped me sleep better. I started, drinking wine more, because it helped me sleep better. It helped me drown out the day. Your job can affect your sleep. I'm telling you, like, if you're dealing with a lot of shit at your job, or if you deal with certain people at your job, it can affect your sleep. Another thing here that I read about diseases, you can catch a disease and it might be hard for you to recover from it because you don't get enough sleep. Your immune system is very important, and it doesn't even matter about age. It doesn't matter about age. I think what it has to do with is your immune system. Your immune system, of course, the older you get, the more compromised it can be. But if you're not getting adequate sleep, no matter what age you are, your immune system can definitely change. And not for the good, because sleep is meant for your body to heal. It's meant for your body to recover. And if you're not getting enough hours of sleep and rest, your body cannot recover from whatever it is it's trying to fight off. You could be dealing with something internally, but if you're not getting adequate rest and sleep, your body can't fight it off when you're tossing and turning in bed, feeling like pins and needles are, hitting your feet or by certain body parts. I know how this feels. Like, I literally just dealt with this last night. Like, I went to sleep, dozed off around, like, after I watched some TV, after I ate, watched some TV, stayed up a little bit, then I dozed off, slept for like maybe 2 hours. I got up, I couldn't fall back asleep. And every time I tried to fall back asleep, I felt like pins and needles were hitting me. So that's another thing that I'm going to talk about too. It goes back to witchcraft too. I don't know if it's, witchcraft that's involved. I don't know. But I believe that witchcraft can be involved sometimes with sleep deprivation. People don't understand that. Yeah, I'm reading the internet. I'm reading the internet definition, but everything's spiritual. You gotta think about it. Everything's spiritual. Lack of sleep. If you're having anxiety, if you're dealing with anxiety, not focusing, you're dealing with depression, a lot of that is spiritual. Anxiety and depression and irritability, being irritated all the time, can cause you, the cause of it, I believe, is spiritual. Like, you gotta think about it. Anxiety is when you're constantly stressed, you're constantly worrying about something. But if you have peace in your heart, what are you having anxiety for? But it's not that simple. It's just not that simple. People feel like, well, if you are doing the right thing, or if you trust in God, then you shouldn't have anxiety. But people just don't understand. It's just not that simple. People don't get it. It's not that simple. Yeah, of course I prayed. Of course I prayed. For those who really understand me and know who I am, they know that I am a very spiritual person, and I do pray to the Most High God. But I'm not talking on this podcast to prove to you guys that I believe in the Most High God and I pray. But the point I'm trying to make is, I'm not perfect, but yes, I do pray to God and ask God for peace. At the same time, you still got to do your part. And even though I'm doing my part, you still have to understand that it's deeper than just, oh, don't worry, don't fear. A lot of it has to do with the mental too as well. But that's enough about that. It can cause you to gain weight. And I think I've gained some pounds because you're not, burning any calories. When you sleep, you burn calories. But when you don't get enough sleep, you're not burning any calories. It can also cause you to have pimples on your face. It can affect your skin. It can do all types of, like I said, when you're sleeping, that's when your body's resting, recovering. Your cells are recovering during those hours that your eyes are closed and your brain is resting. Your cells have to recover. But if you're not, if you're not sleeping or getting enough adequate rest, your body can't recover. You have a lot of headaches and migraines. I've experienced that. It can cause you not to be able to manage your emotions. I spoke on that. It's hard for you to interact with people. That's something that I deal with on a daily basis. That's probably why I don't have a lot of friends. That's probably why, I maybe trip sometimes in relationships. I don't know. It could be because certain things that people who deal with sleep deprivation, the things that trigger them are different from people who sleep. People that sleep regular hours, get enough rest, real rest, and then get up and do the same routine every day, their mental state is totally different. The things that might trigger me might not trigger the next person. They might be looking at me like, what's her problem? Like, why is she so irritated? Why is she so triggered? But you don't understand, like, when you're irritated all the time, it can cause you to think about different things, and those thoughts can affect your emotions, and it can affect the way you act and react to things. And granted, of course, the older you get, you should be able to manage it, but at this point, we're not even talking about age. You got people who are older than me who are not as mature. There's people who are more mature that are older than me, and then vice versa. There are people who are younger than me who are more mature than me. That's just what it is. That's just the world. I'm pretty sure there are people who are younger than me who deal with the same shit, but they react differently because everyone's different. But the main thing is irritability, anxiety, depression, immune system depleting or decreasing, possibly, especially if you're not eating right. Imagine if you're not eating right. If you're not eating right and you're not getting enough sleep, can you imagine what your immune system is going to be like? And depending on who the people you're around, your body has to be able to take on whatever comes its way. Because you got to understand, everybody's hygiene is different. Everyone's hygiene is completely different. So if your immune system is not up and ready for whatever might come its way, it can either break it or cause you to have to, rest and recover back again. And if you're not getting the adequate rest and recovery that you need, man, that can take a toll on you. It really can, depending on what it is. That's why I said everyone's hygiene is totally different. And I'm not judging, but you gotta understand, like, if you work with the public, like I said, everyone's hygiene is different, and your immune system needs to be able to fight off whatever comes its way, because everyone has germs. We all have germs. You can't get away from getting in contact with germs. You can't get away from being near people who got germs, because we all got germs. I got germs. But the best thing is for you to take care of yourself the best way you're supposed to, and make sure you're clean, and make sure you're taking care of yourself the best way, making sure you're monitoring your hygiene. Like I said, I'm not perfect, but I try to monitor my hygiene to make sure, I keep myself up. But at the same time, I can't tell another grown person about them and their hygiene. So with that being said, I need enough rest so I can fight off whatever comes my way. Anyways, now, our second topic is witchcraft. And I'm going to delve a little bit deeper than what you guys think I am, because some people think it's something more than what it is, something basic. Like, for example, the internet says witchcraft is the practice of using magic or supernatural powers to cause harm to others. It can also refer to a religion or spirituality that involves the use of magic for benevolent purposes. So, like, I'm gonna reread it. It says, witchcraft is the practice of using magic or supernatural powers to cause harm to others. It can also refer to a religion, spirit, or spirituality that involves the use of magic for benevolent purposes. Now, benevolent. Let's look at that up. What does benevolent mean? The internet says that benevolent means kind and with positive intentions, kind, charitable. So I guess people use magic to do kind and charitable things. But honestly, guys, I think it's deeper than that. I think, like I said, it's spiritual. It's a spiritual thing, because witchcraft is not just the wand, like Harry Potter. How Harry Potter was using the wand to cast spells and, do different things to harm his offenders, or to harm his enemies. That's not the only type of witchcraft. I think that witchcraft is deception. Witchcraft can be deception. One way of witchcraft is fakeness. When you do something to when you exaggerate your looks. For example, this is what I used to do. I'm gonna use myself as an example. I used to wear a full face of makeup. A full face of makeup. Then I would wear a wig. Mind you, I had hair underneath my head. It wasn't down my back. It wasn't Rapunzel, but I had hair. You know what I'm saying? I had hair, but I was still wearing a wig. I was wearing a wig and I had a full face of MAC makeup, Maybelline, Elf, what else? MAC, Sephora, you name it, NYX, you name it. I wore it all. My favorite was makeup from Sephora and MAC. But I'm telling you, I had a full face of makeup, was wearing lashes, wigs, long weaves. At one point I had lock extensions. Then I had to cut it out because I'm like, this is not my hair. And I had to regrow my hair back. And now I'm in that process I'm in that ugly stage. My locks are in that ugly stage. So I'm not really confident. But going back to what I said, witchcraft is a deception. When you deceive people. Magic is deception. That's the devil. Deception. You gotta think about it. Magic is not real. It's something that someone is using certain powers. Where they're getting those powers from, I don't know. I have no idea where they're getting these powers from. But they're getting these powers from somewhere.